Yo, welcome back to the channel. Kamusta sa inyong lahat? Phoebe is one of the most confusing characters coming to Wuthering Waves, thanks to her wild new mechanic called a spectrofrazzle, which blinds and razzle-dazzles enemies with heavenly light that feels like it was designed in a sci-fi experimental lab. She has abilities rarely seen in base kits, making many players question, should you pull for Phoebe? Or is she a flashy mistake wrapped in a spectral colored beam of light? Well, I have a couple of reasons why you should pull for her and a couple of reasons why you absolutely should not. Let's dive into Phoebe's biggest pros and cons, and by the end, you can decide whether you want to add this chaotic genius to your roster or pretend she never existed. Disclaimer: this video is based on pre-release theories and information, so please take everything with a grain of salt. What we know about Phoebe could easily change upon her official release. Alrighty, first up, let's talk about her insane teammates. Phoebe isn't like Carlotta, where the best in slot support is painfully obvious. No, she has an entire buffet of viable teammates that could work well with her hyper carry playstyle. Mortifi, Sanhua, Yang Yang, and even Roccia could all serve as excellent supports, with some offering better synergy than others. And when I say better, I mean just enough to get by. Because the kicker is, Phoebe really doesn't care. She'll take whoever boosts her damage and roll with it, no matter how small the boost may be. Because there are no available characters in the current roster designed to buff a Spectrofrazzle just yet. Sure, Shorekeeper will pad her crit numbers, but other than her, the only buffs that can be used on Phoebe at the moment are buffs that increase skill damage and elemental damage. Perhaps you could say Lumi and Yuanwu can help with their vibration shreds. Phoebe is basically for those players who enjoy characters that buff themselves while dealing huge amounts of damage, whether be it a hyper carry or part of a dual DPS quick swapping team. Phoebe has access to dual carry playstyles without needing heavy external buffs, unlike Jinshi, who practically needs Mortifi or Jeji to fill her incandescence in order to deal huge amounts of damage. Phoebe is more of an independent queen who buffs herself so much that she can throw a second DPS into the mix. Changli or Brant? Sure, why not? She'll probably make it work. Her damage amplification is already ridiculous, so she's completely free from the chains of running meta supports, giving your account more flexibility. That alone is worth pulling for her, right? Another major plus, Phoebe is stupidly easy to build. Unlike Brant, who has a high energy regen requirement and needs a specific synergy, Phoebe's entire kit revolves around one thing: crits. She doesn't have a Spectrofrazzle buffing teammates, but she compensates by needing absurdly high crit numbers to offset her relatively low damage multipliers. This makes her one of the simplest DPS units to gear. Just stack crit rate, crit damage, and some attack, and she'll do what she does best, hitting big numbers. This makes her a much more accessible unit to gear, allowing players to optimize her without bending over backwards for specific supports. And for those of you who don't believe in dodging, and you know who you are, so guess what? Phoebe is ranged. She is a friggin' witch. That's right. She can stand at a safe distance while other characters are getting tossed around like ragdolls. Who needs dodging when you can just not be in danger? Finally, we need to talk about her ridiculous AoE. She gives Camellya a run for her money in terms of multi-target damage, but without the unfortunate drawback of being a sitting duck. If you're up against multiple enemies, Phoebe is an absolute menace. Now, let's talk about her biggest issues. Phoebe lacks great dedicated buffers. Her damage is divided across so many sources: basic attacks, heavy attacks, outro skill and her liberation. That finding the right buffs for her is like solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. That is, unless we get a Resonator with an outro skill that buffs spectral damage and spectral frazzle. And I'm looking at you devs because I'm thinking Zani right now. But she's stuck in this weird limbo where no single buffer optimally supports her. So far, Shorekeeper can pad her crit numbers, Verena can provide attack stat padding, and Sanwa can boost her basic attack damage. But other than that, who else can you put in there to buff Phoebe? And let's not forget the giant Jinshi-shaped elephant in the room. Being the same element as Jinshi means Phoebe is constantly fighting for relevancy in spectro-heavy team comps. On top of that, Tower of Adversity's new elemental resistance system means that if you have both Phoebe and Jinshi, you're rolling the dice every cycle on whether or not one of them is functionally useless. Balance? Well, what the heck is that? In theory, the pairing of Jinshi and Phoebe should be a godsend, especially in the Tower of Adversity. But that could only work if Phoebe can fill Jinshi's incandescence, while the Shorekeeper provides crit buffs and healing to both DPS units. Thus, unless a new Resonator comes along that provides buffs to both incandescence, spectro, and spectrofrazzle while giving off sustained support, it's yet to be seen whether this dual DPS team could actually work. So in conclusion, let's recap. Should you pull for Phoebe? If you love high AoE damage overtime effects that melt enemies before they even realize what's happening, and gameplay so simple that you could practically play her half asleep, then congratulations, because Phoebe was made for you. She's the ultimate pick for players who want to stack crit, watch damage numbers rain down like divine judgment, and never have to worry about dodging because, well, she's nowhere near the enemy to begin with. She's also one of the easiest Resonators to build, requiring nothing more than crit rate, crit damage, and even more crit to function at peak efficiency. If you're tired of characters that demand convoluted energy recharge thresholds or hyper-specific stat balancing, Phoebe is a breath of fresh air. Just a slap on your best DPS gear and you should be good to go. But, and it's a big but, Phoebe is not for everyone. Do you hate waiting? Because she has a damage overtime playstyle. So if you're all about instant gratification and big bursts of damage right now, she might not be the perfect fit. Do you dream of running her in a dual DPS team with Jinshi? Well, tough luck, because unless a miracle happens, that synergy is still highly questionable. And do you fear the ever-growing influence of the Shorekeeper in your account? Because once again, our favorite crit buffer, Lifeguard, is here to stay. And if you're already sick of relying on her, Phoebe might push you over the edge. At the end of the day, Phoebe is either the ultimate meta-defining pick, a high-maintenance diva, or just another pretty face on the character screen. Only time will tell. But hey, if you're still on the fence, let me know in the comments below. Are you coping? Are you already praying to the gacha gods? Are you in full denial that you're about to spend all of your pulls and regret it later? I want to hear it all. And while you're at it, smash that like button and subscribe. Unless you want Ling Yang as your next 5-star pull and spend the next 3 months wondering where it all went wrong. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Maraming salamat po. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.